The phone buzzed on the nightstand like an angry wasp. Not my phone, hers. Ember's phone, sitting there innocent as Sunday morning while she hummed some tune in the shower. Steam drifted out from under the bathroom door, carrying the scent of her expensive lavender soap, the kind that costs more than I make in a day fixing diagnostic computers for Hartwell Auto. I shouldn't have looked. That's what any decent husband would say, right? But then again, any decent wife wouldn't have been acting like a stranger for the past 6 months. Cold shoulders, late nights at the office, and conversations that felt like negotiations with a hostile foreign power. The phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with a notification that made my coffee taste like motor oil. A photo message from Wes Farrow. My wife, sitting on his desk in her corporate office, skirt hiked up, company badge dangling between her fingers like a trophy. The caption underneath hit me like a wrench to the gut. "She'll do anything for me. You lost here too." I stared at that screen for maybe 10 seconds, watching the image burn itself into my memory. Then I did something that surprised even me. I typed back a single word. Lost? The shower was still running. Ember was still humming. And I was still sitting there in my boxers and yesterday's t-shirt, holding proof that my marriage had been a lie for God knows how long. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You learn to think while everyone else is busy talking. And right now, I was thinking about Ember's password, written on a sticky note and taped under her keyboard like some amateur hour security breach. People never change their habits, especially people who think they're smarter than everyone else. I grabbed my laptop and got to work. Her cloud storage opened like a flower in spring, revealing 6 years of emails, expense reports, and something that made my hands shake with rage. Wes's personal notes about me, a running commentary of every interaction we'd had since high school, every perceived slight, every moment he'd managed to one-up me. The guy had been keeping score for 20 years, and apparently he thought he was winning. Tanner still drives that piece of junk Honda. Ember says she's embarrassed. Convinced Ember to skip Tanner's birthday for the company retreat. She didn't even hesitate. He has no idea how easy this is. She complains about him every day. Each entry was dated, cataloged, filed away like evidence in a case I didn't know I was losing. But the most recent ones made my jaw clench so tight, I thought my teeth might crack. She's ready to leave him, just needs the right push. Tanner's too stupid to see what's happening. Makes this almost too easy. Final phase. Get her to file papers after the promotion goes through. She'll get the house, half his pension, and I get the satisfaction of beating him one last time. The shower stopped. Ember's humming continued, but now it sounded different, like a victory song I wasn't supposed to hear. I closed the laptop and reached for my phone. Pierce Eldro answered on the second ring, his voice gravelly with sleep. "Tanner, it's 7 in the morning on a Saturday. Remember what you said about making people pay for their mistakes?" A pause. Pierce had been my friend since we were kids, and he'd grown up to become the kind of forensic accountant who could find a missing penny in a corporate budget the size of a small country. He'd offered his services before, usually after a few beers and a rant about some injustice or another. I remember. What happened? They want to play games, but they forgot something important. What's that? I know how to fix things when they're broken, and brother, this whole situation is about to need some serious repairs. Pierce chuckled, and I could hear him sitting up in bed. You want to make this nuclear? The bathroom door opened. Ember stepped out in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, looking like the woman I'd married 10 years ago. Beautiful, confident, and apparently a complete stranger. Good morning, honey, she said, not looking at her phone. Sleep well? I smiled at her, the kind of smile that had gotten me through 20 years of Wes Farrow's condescension and 10 years of a marriage that had apparently been a joke from the start. Like a baby, I said. Pierce, you still there? Still here. I'm ready. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The rusty clutch hadn't changed in 15 years, which was exactly why I liked it. The same worn vinyl booths, the same flickering neon beer signs, the same mix of fried food and hard-earned effort in the air. It was the sort of place where you could think without anyone trying to sell you a premium version of your own thoughts. Pierce was already there when I walked in, hunched over a cup of coffee that looked strong enough to strip paint. He'd spread some papers across the table but kept them face down, old habits from his accounting days, when a misplaced decimal point could ruin lives. "You look terrible," he said as I slid into the booth across from him. "Thanks, you always know just what to say." The waitress, a woman named Dolly, who'd been serving coffee here since the Clinton administration, poured me a cup without being asked. She'd seen enough broken men in her time to recognize the signs. "So," Pierce said, flipping over the first sheet of paper, "I did some digging after our call. Your wife's been busy." The paper showed a financial summary that made my stomach turn. Joint accounts I didn't know existed, credit cards in both our names that I'd never seen, and a pattern of spending that told a story I really didn't want to read. "She's been moving money," Pierce continued. "Small amounts. Nothing that would trigger any automatic alerts, but consistent. Like she's been planning something. Planning to leave me. Planning to leave you with nothing." He flipped to the next page. "But here's where it gets interesting. Your friend Wes has been sloppy with his expense reports. Company credit card charges at hotels, restaurants, even a jewelry store. All of it filed under client entertainment." I studied the numbers, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. How sloppy? Sloppy enough that if someone were to forward these reports to internal audit, along with some supporting documentation, it might raise some uncomfortable questions. Pierce had always been good with details, but this was different. This was surgical. "What kind of supporting documentation?" He grinned, the kind of grin that had gotten us both in trouble back in high school. "The kind that shows patterns. Hotel charges on the same days your wife called in sick. Restaurant bills for two when he claimed to be dining alone. And my personal favorite, a receipt for lingerie charged to the company card and delivered to your home address. He bought her lingerie with company money? Apparently your wife's underwear qualifies as a business expense in Wes Farrow's world." I took a long sip of coffee, letting the implications sink in. "What else?" "Ava Henderson, your wife's friend in HR. She's been covering for both of them. Falsifying timesheets, approving expense reports without proper documentation, even backdating some vacation requests. She's in this up to her neck." "Can you prove it?" Pierce flipped to another page, this one covered in highlighted entries and sticky notes. "Already have. The question is, how far do you want to take this?" I thought about Ember this morning, humming in the shower while her phone buzzed with messages from her lover. I thought about Wes's notes, his careful documentation of every way he'd managed to humiliate me over the years. I thought about 20 years of being treated like the slow kid in class, the guy who wasn't quite smart enough to see what was really happening. "All the way," I said. "But we do this right. No cutting corners, no mistakes they can use against us later." "Fair enough. But Tanner?" "Yeah? This is going to get ugly. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text message from Ember. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I showed the message to Pierce, who checked his watch. It was barely noon on a Saturday. "Yeah," I said, deleting the message. "I'm ready." We spent the next 2 hours going over details, planning moves like generals preparing for war. Pierce had access to databases that could trace financial records back years, and I had something even more valuable. I knew how both of them thought. Ember's need to control every situation, Wes's arrogance that made him sloppy when he thought he was winning. "First step," Pierce said, gathering up his papers. "We need to document everything. Every lie, every expense, every time they've bent the rules. Build a case so solid that when it comes out, there's no room for excuses. What about Ava? Leave her to me. People like her always have secrets, and secrets make people cooperative. I was about to respond when I saw something that made my chest tighten. Through the bar's front window, I could see Ember's car pulling into the parking lot of the office building across the street. The same office building where Wes worked. The same office building she'd claimed to be avoiding because of renovations. Pierce. I see it. We watched as Ember got out of her car, looked around nervously, then hurried toward the building's side entrance. She was dressed differently than she'd been this morning. Tighter clothes, more makeup, like she was going on a date instead of working late. You know what the worst part is? I said, still watching the empty parking lot where her car had been. What's that? She probably thinks she's being clever. Pierce laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. People always think they're the first ones to figure out how to cheat the system. They never realize the system's been keeping track all along. I finished my coffee and stood up. Time to start keeping better track. Where are you going? To plant a bug in Wes's car. If they want to play spy games, they should probably learn the rules first. Pierce grabbed my arm as I started to leave. Tanner, be careful. These people aren't just cheating on you. They're planning to destroy you. Don't give them any ammunition they can use later. I looked back at the office building, thinking about Ember in there right now, probably laughing about how easy this all was, how stupid her husband was, how completely she'd fooled him. Don't worry, I said. I'm not planning to give them anything, but I'm definitely planning to take something away. The corporate parking garage at night felt like a concrete tomb, all shadows and echoing footsteps. I'd been waiting in my Honda for 20 minutes, watching Wes's restored Trans Am gleam under the fluorescent lights like a trophy he couldn't stop polishing. The GPS tracker I'd ordered online was smaller than a matchbox, magnetic, and virtually undetectable once attached to a car's undercarriage. Pierce had suggested it, along with the tiny recording device I planned to stick under Wes's dashboard. Legal in Maine, as long as you didn't mind explaining yourself to a judge later. I was halfway under the Trans Am when I heard footsteps approaching. Expensive shoes on concrete, the kind that announce their owner's importance with every step. I froze, the tracker still in my hand, listening as the footsteps got closer. Well, Tanner Jossman in the flesh. I slid out from under the car and found myself looking up at Wes Farrow. He was dressed in his usual weekend casual, khakis that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and a polo shirt that screamed country club. His smile was the same one he'd worn in high school when he'd gotten me suspended for a fight he'd started. Wes. I stood up slowly, brushing dust off my jeans. Fancy meeting you here. Funny thing about fancy meetings, they're usually planned. He stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne, something expensive and aggressive. What are you doing to my car? Admiring the craftsmanship. Beautiful restoration work. Must have cost a fortune. It did, but then again, I can afford it. His smile widened. Some of us have moved up in the world since high school. And some of us have learned new tricks. I held up the tracker, letting him see it clearly. His face went through several expressions: confusion, recognition, and finally, rage. You son of a... Careful, Wes. We're in a public place. Wouldn't want anyone to think you were threatening me. He looked around the empty garage, then back at me. There's nobody here, Tanner. Just you and me, and a conversation that's long overdue. You're right about that. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It displayed a text message I'd prepared earlier. In parking garage with Wes. If something happens to me, check the security cameras. Already sent, I said, to 3 different people. Amazing what technology can do these days. Wes's face flushed red, but he stepped back. You think you're clever, don't you? I think I'm learning. For instance, I learned that you've been keeping notes about me for 20 years, detailed notes, the kind that make a man wonder what else you might be documenting. The color drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Just like you know about the expense reports, the hotel charges, and the lingerie receipt, the one delivered to my house. Now he looked genuinely worried. How did you? The same way I found out about everything else. You see, Wes, you've always made the same mistake. You assume everyone else is stupider than you are. I started walking toward my car, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Wes, you might want to check your key card. I think it might be having some technical difficulties. I held up a small plastic card, his parking garage access card, which I'd lifted from his pocket while he was busy being intimidating. Give that back. Sure thing. I tossed the card to him, but my throw was deliberately short. It skittered across the concrete and slid under a parked truck 3 spaces away. Oops. Butterfingers. Wes scrambled after the card while I calmly got into my Honda and started the engine. Through the windshield, I watched him crawling around on his hands and knees in his expensive khakis, searching for the key card in the shadows under the truck. I rolled down my window as I drove past. See you around, Wes. Give my regards to my wife. The parking garage exit required a key card to open. I used mine, the one I'd gotten from Pierce, who'd gotten it from a contact in building security. As the gate lifted, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw Wes standing next to his Trans Am, keycard in hand, realizing that I'd switched it with a dummy card while he was distracted. He'd be stuck in that garage for at least an hour until security made their next round. My phone rang as I pulled onto the street. How'd it go? Pierce asked. Better than expected. Our friend is going to be spending some quality time with his car tonight. Did you get the tracker placed? Even better. I got something else. What's that? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small device about the size of a thumb drive. His phone fell out of his pocket while he was trying to intimidate me. Pierce whistled. That's either brilliant or insane. Maybe both. But Pierce? Yeah? I found something else in his car, an envelope with Ember's name on it. Looked like legal documents. What kind of legal documents? I thought about the envelope I'd glimpsed on Wes's passenger seat, thick and official looking, with the letterhead of a divorce attorney I recognized from late-night TV commercials. The kind that suggests they're moving faster than we thought. How much faster? Fast enough that we need to accelerate our timeline. How soon can you get those expense reports to internal audit? Monday morning. But Tanner, if they're already preparing legal papers, then we make sure those papers become very expensive to file. I ended the call and drove home through the empty streets, thinking about Ember and what she might be doing right now. Probably wondering why Wes wasn't answering his phone. Probably starting to worry that their carefully laid plans might not be as foolproof as they'd thought. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Ember's car wasn't there, which meant she was still working late. I sat in the Honda for a few minutes, looking at the place I'd called home for 10 years, wondering how much of it had been real and how much had been an elaborate performance for an audience of one. Then I went inside and started planning the next phase of their education. Sunday morning brought rain and the sound of Ember's key in the front door. I was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and the newspaper, playing the role of the oblivious husband for what I hoped would be the last time. Morning, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Her hair was different, styled in a way that suggested she hadn't slept at home. Sorry I'm so late. The project ran longer than expected. No problem. Coffee's fresh. She poured herself a cup but didn't sit down. Instead, she leaned against the counter, studying me like I was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Tanner, we need to talk. Sure. What's on your mind? I think we should consider some changes in our arrangement. I folded the newspaper carefully, taking my time. What kind of changes? Maybe some time apart, to figure things out. Figure what things out? She set down her coffee cup harder than necessary. Don't make this difficult. You know things haven't been good between us. I know a lot of things, Ember. The question is, which things are you talking about? Something flickered in her eyes, uncertainty, maybe even fear. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could answer, my phone rang, Pierce's number. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to take this. I walked into the living room, leaving Ember in the kitchen with her coffee and her guilty conscience. It's done, Pierce said without preamble. Internal audit will have the expense reports first thing Monday morning, along with supporting documentation and a timeline that's going to make some people very uncomfortable. What about Ava? She's been busy this weekend. Apparently, she's decided to become a whistleblower. Amazing how cooperative people get when they realize they're not the only ones with secrets. I glanced back at the kitchen, where Ember was pacing like a caged animal. What did you find on her? Let's just say that HR representatives aren't supposed to have access to the executive expense account, or use it to pay for their own vacations. How much? Enough to make embezzlement charges stick. She'll be singing like a canary by Tuesday. And Wes? Still trying to figure out what happened to his phone. Building security found him in the parking garage at midnight, trying to explain why he was there after hours without proper authorization. I almost smiled. Poor guy. Technology can be so confusing. There's something else, Tanner. I ran a deeper check on their financial activities. They've been planning this for at least a year, maybe longer. The kitchen had gone quiet. I looked back and saw Ember standing in the doorway, listening. I'll call you back, I said, ending the call. Who was that? She asked. Pierce. He's helping me with some technical issues. What kind of technical issues? I walked past her into the kitchen and refilled my coffee cup. The kind that involve people trying to access things that don't belong to them. She followed me, her face pale. Tanner, what are you talking about? I'm talking about expense reports, Ember. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, jewelry purchases. All very interesting reading. The color drained completely from her face. You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. You had no right. I had every right. We're married, remember? Joint accounts, shared assets, mutual responsibility for debts. All very legal, all very binding. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me. How long have you known? Known what? That you've been planning to leave me? That you've been moving money around behind my back? That your work friend Wes has been documenting our marriage like it was some kind of science experiment? It's not what you think. Really? Then explain it to me. Explain the hotel charges. Explain the jewelry. Explain why your lover has been keeping a journal about every way he's managed to humiliate me for the past 20 years. Tears started running down her cheeks, but they looked more like frustration than genuine sadness. You don't understand. Things between us haven't been good for a long time. So you decided to fix them by having an affair and planning to take me for everything I'm worth? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Ember? Walk me through the plan. When were you going to file the papers? After the promotion went through? After you'd moved enough money to make sure I couldn't fight back? She stared at me, and I could see the exact moment she realized how much I knew. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You and Wes thought you were playing a game with someone too stupid to know the rules. But here's what you missed. I've been learning the rules my whole life, and now it's my turn to play. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. What? She asked. Wes is looking for you. Apparently he's having some technical difficulties and needs to talk. What kind of technical difficulties? I showed her the message. Emergency. Meet me at the office. Come alone. Don't trust anyone. Sounds like your boyfriend is having a rough morning, I said. You should probably go help him. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. Tanner, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I know exactly how far you meant for it to go, Ember. The question is, are you ready for how far I'm willing to take it? She left, without another word. I watched from the window as she backed out of the driveway, probably rushing to comfort Wes and figure out how much damage had been done. What she didn't know was that Wes hadn't sent that message. I had, using his phone, the one that was currently sitting in my kitchen drawer, providing me with a front-row seat to their entire conspiracy. I poured myself another cup of coffee and settled in to watch the show. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that makes everything look like a crime scene. I was at Hartwell Auto by 7, running diagnostics on a Ford that had been giving its owner fits, when my phone started buzzing with activity. 3 missed calls from Ember, 2 text messages, 1 voicemail that I played while calibrating a fuel injection system. Tanner, I need you to call me back right away. Something's happened at work. There's been some kind of mistake with the expense reports and they're asking questions about things that aren't. Just call me back, okay? I deleted the message and went back to work. The Ford's computer system was corrupted, probably from someone trying to install aftermarket modifications without understanding the underlying architecture. It reminded me of people who tried to hack systems they didn't fully comprehend. They usually ended up making things worse for themselves. Pierce called at 9:30. It started, he said. Internal audit showed up at Wes's office an hour ago with boxes and a very serious-looking woman from corporate legal. What about Ember? She's been called into a meeting with HR. Ava's already there, apparently singing like she's auditioning for American Idol. And Wes? Suspended pending investigation. They escorted him out of the building 20 minutes ago. I finished connecting the diagnostic cables and started the Ford's engine. It purred like a contented cat, all its problems solved with the right application of knowledge and patience. How long before they figure out the scope of this thing? Based on what Ava's telling them, by the end of the week they'll have enough to file charges: corporate theft, falsification of records, abuse of company resources. Your wife and her boyfriend are looking at serious jail time. The Ford's owner, a middle-aged woman named Janet, came out of the waiting room to check on the progress. How's she looking? Janet asked, patting the car's hood like it was a sick pet. Good as new, I said. Just needed someone to clean up the mess and restore the original settings. Janet smiled. Amazing what a little expertise can accomplish. Pierce, I said into the phone after Janet went back inside. There's something else I need you to do. What's that? I want you to freeze all the joint accounts. Every credit card, every savings account, every investment we've made together. As of right now, Ember doesn't have access to a dime of our money. That's going to make her very unhappy. That's the idea, but Pierce, make sure everything's legal. I want her angry, not sympathetic. Already on it, I've prepared the paperwork to protect your assets in case she files for divorce. The way this is shaping up, she's not going to be in any position to make demands. I spent the rest of the morning fixing other people's problems, finding a strange satisfaction in the methodical process of diagnosis and repair. Every car that rolled into the bay had a story: neglect, abuse, or simple bad luck that had left it broken and unreliable. But most problems had solutions if you knew where to look and weren't afraid to get your hands dirty. At lunchtime, I drove to the Rusty Clutch for a sandwich and found half the bar buzzing with gossip about the corporate scandal that was unfolding across town. Heard they arrested some executives, Dolly said, refilling my coffee cup. Embezzlement or something like that. Really? My nephew works security over at that big office building. Says they had FBI agents going through files all morning. I almost choked on my sandwich. FBI? Apparently, when you steal enough money, it becomes a federal case. Who knew? I pulled out my phone and called Pierce. Please tell me you knew about the FBI, I said when he answered. I was hoping they wouldn't get involved this quickly. Pierce. Okay, here's the thing. When I started digging into the expense account irregularities, I found some additional problems. It looks like Wes has been running a much bigger operation than we thought. How much bigger? Try $500,000 over 3 years. And some of it involved clients in other states, which makes it interstate fraud. I set down my sandwich. Are you telling me that my wife is mixed up in a federal crime? I'm telling you that your wife picked the wrong boyfriend. Wes wasn't just cheating the company out of hotel money, he was running fake consulting contracts, billing for services that were never performed, even setting up shell companies to launder the money. And Ember? She signed off on a lot of the paperwork. As far as the feds are concerned, she's either a co-conspirator or the most negligent employee in corporate history. I thought about Ember this morning, panicking about mistakes in the expense reports. She'd had no idea how deep the hole really was. Where does this leave me? Clean as a whistle, as long as you can prove you had no knowledge of their activities, which, given your financial records and the timeline we've established, shouldn't be a problem. My phone buzzed with another call. Ember again. I have to go, I told Pierce. My wife wants to chat. I answered Ember's call on the 4th ring. Tanner, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. I've been working. You know, that thing people do to earn honest money? This isn't the time for jokes. I'm in serious trouble here. What kind of trouble? They're saying I was involved in some kind of fraud scheme. They think I helped Wes steal money from the company. Did you? A long pause. It's complicated. No, Ember, it's really not. Either you helped him steal money or you didn't. I signed some papers, but I didn't know what they were for. He told me they were routine expense approvals. How many papers? I don't know. Maybe 100 over the past 2 years? I closed my eyes. 100 fraudulent documents with her signature on them. Even if she was telling the truth about not knowing, it was going to be almost impossible to prove. Tanner, I need your help. They want me to get a lawyer, and good lawyers cost money. Money I don't have access to right now. Why don't you have access to money? Someone froze all our accounts. The bank says they can't discuss it over the phone, but they won't let me withdraw anything. Huh. That's strange. Tanner, did you freeze our accounts? I protected our assets, yes. Seemed like the prudent thing to do, given the circumstances. You can't do that. I need that money. Actually, I can do that. And I did. Funny how marriage works. Joint assets, joint responsibility, joint control. Please, Tanner. I know I made mistakes, but I can't go to prison. You have to help me. I looked around the bar, at all the honest people having honest conversations about their honest lives, and felt something cold settle in my chest. You know what, Ember? You're absolutely right. I do have to help you. Thank you. I knew you'd. I have to help you understand that actions have consequences. I have to help you learn that other people aren't just supporting characters in your personal drama, and most importantly, I have to help you realize that the game you've been playing has rules you never bothered to learn. What are you saying? I'm saying good luck with the lawyer. I'm saying good luck explaining to a jury why you signed all those papers without reading them. And I'm saying good luck finding someone else to clean up your mess, because I'm done being your safety net. I hung up and ordered another cup of coffee. Outside, the drizzle had turned into honest rain, the kind that washes things clean and makes everything look new again. My phone rang immediately. Ember calling back. I let it go to voicemail. The abandoned auto shop on Millfield Road had been closed for 3 years, ever since old Pete Kowalski retired and moved to Florida. But the building was still solid, and more importantly, it was isolated enough for the kind of conversation I had in mind. I'd sent the message from Wes's phone Tuesday morning. Meet me at Pete's old place, 8 p.m. Come alone. Time to end this. Now it was 7:45, and I was sitting in the shadows of the service bay, waiting for my guests to arrive. The building still smelled like motor oil and honest work, a sharp contrast to the corporate perfume and expensive cologne that had been poisoning my life for months. Pierce was positioned across the street with a camera, and a direct line to 3 different news outlets. We'd decided that if this was going to end, it should end publicly, with witnesses and documentation that couldn't be explained away later. Ember's car pulled into the lot first, her headlights sweeping across the empty building like searchlights looking for trouble. She sat in the car for a few minutes, probably trying to call Wes and wondering why he wasn't answering. What she didn't know was that Wes's phone was sitting on the workbench next to me, still providing a window into their increasingly desperate text messages. Wes arrived 10 minutes later, driving a rental car since his Trans Am was currently in the police impound lot as evidence in the federal investigation. He got out slowly, looking around the empty lot like a man walking into a trap he couldn't quite identify. They met near the building's side entrance, their voices carrying clearly in the cold night air. "What the hell is going on?" Ember demanded. "Why did you want to meet here?" "I didn't send that message," Wes said. I stepped out of the shadows, and both of them spun around like they'd been caught stealing from the collection plate. "But I did," I said, holding up Wes's phone. Amazing how much you can learn about people when you have access to their private communications. Wes took a step forward, his face flushed with anger. "You son of a—" "Careful, Wes. We're not in high school anymore, and I'm not the same kid you used to push around. Give me my phone." "Sure thing." I tossed the phone to him, watching as he fumbled the catch and nearly dropped it. "You might want to change your passwords, and your lock screen code, and probably your email settings while you're at it." Ember moved closer to Wes, and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Tanner, what do you want?" "I want you to understand something. Both of you. You thought you were playing a game with someone too stupid to fight back. You thought you could humiliate me, steal from me, and walk away laughing." "It wasn't like that," Ember said. "Really? Then what was it like? Walk me through it, Ember. When did you decide I wasn't worth being honest with? When did you decide that 20 years of friendship meant nothing, Wes?" Wes straightened up, trying to recover some of his old arrogance. "You want to know the truth, Tanner? You were always a loser. High school, college, your pathetic job fixing other people's mistakes. Ember deserves better than a life spent settling for mediocrity." "And you think you're better?" "I know I'm better. I've got the career, the money, the success, everything you never had and never will have." I pulled out my own phone and showed them the screen. It displayed a news article that had gone live an hour earlier. "Local executives arrested in federal fraud investigation." Funny thing about success, Wes. It's only as good as the foundation it's built on. The color drained from his face as he read the headline. "How did the press get this so quickly?" "Same way they got the photos of you being escorted out of the building in handcuffs. Same way they got copies of the expense reports, the hotel receipts, and the email chains between you and Ember." Ember grabbed my arm. "Tanner, please. We can work this out. We can fix this." I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then back at her face. "You know what the really sad part is? If you'd just asked for a divorce, I probably would have given you everything you wanted. The house, half the savings, even helped you start over somewhere else. It's not too late. We can still—" "Yes, it is too late. It was too late the moment you decided I was too stupid to notice what was happening. Too late when you started planning to destroy me for the crime of not being good enough for you." Car headlights swept across the lot, and I smiled. "Right on time." 3 vehicles pulled up to the building, 2 news vans and a police cruiser. Doors opened, and suddenly the empty lot was full of reporters, cameras, and very official-looking people with badges. "What did you do?" Wes demanded. "I called a press conference, thought the public might be interested in hearing about corporate fraud, abuse of power, and what happens when people think they're above the law." Detective Sarah Renaud approached us, flanked by 2 FBI agents I didn't recognize. "Wesley Farrow? Ember Jossman? You're both under arrest." As they read Wes his rights, he turned to me with pure hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over, Tanner." "Yes, it is." I watched as they loaded both of them into separate police cars, their faces illuminated by camera flashes and the harsh glare of news lights. Ember was crying now, real tears this time, but it was too late for sympathy. One of the reporters, a sharp-looking woman with perfectly styled hair, approached me with a microphone. "Mr. Jossman, how does it feel to know that your own wife was involved in defrauding her employer?" I looked directly into the camera, thinking about 10 years of marriage, 20 years of friendship, and a lifetime of being underestimated. "It feels like justice," I said. "It feels like people finally learning that actions have consequences, and that the person you think is too stupid to fight back might just be smart enough to let you destroy yourself." The reporter smiled. "Any final words for your wife and her accomplice?" I pulled out an envelope from my jacket pocket, the same envelope I'd seen in Wes's car that night in the parking garage. Inside were divorce papers, already filed and processed, along with a financial settlement that left Ember with exactly what she'd brought to our marriage 10 years ago. Nothing. "Just this," I said, holding up the papers. "Consider it a loyalty bonus, for services not rendered." The cameras kept rolling as the police cars pulled away, carrying Ember and Wes toward a future that looked very different from the one they'd planned. I stood in the empty lot, surrounded by reporters and flashing lights, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Pierce appeared at my elbow, grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. "How does it feel to be the smartest guy in the room?" he asked. I looked around at the chaos, the cameras, the aftermath of a plan that had taken months to execute and seconds to destroy 2 lives. "It feels like I finally learned the most important rule of all," I said. "What's that?" "You can't betray a man who never trusted you, and you can't win a game you didn't know you were playing." The news vans packed up and left. The police finished their work and drove away. Soon it was just me and Pierce, standing in the parking lot of an abandoned auto shop, watching the last of the excitement fade into the distance. "So what now?" Pierce asked. I thought about going home to an empty house, about starting over at 42, about building a life that was finally, completely my own. "Now I get back to work," I said. "There are a lot of broken things in this world that need fixing. And if they ever get out of prison?" I smiled, thinking about Ember and Wes spending the next few years learning about consequences in a place where their charm and arrogance wouldn't protect them. Then they'll discover that some things, once broken, can never be repaired. We walked back to our cars, leaving the empty building to its shadows and silence. Behind us, the abandoned auto shop stood like a monument to honest work and simple justice, while somewhere across town, 2 people were learning the hardest lesson of all, that the person you underestimate today might be the one who destroys you tomorrow.